Let's go live to Sky News host Janie Seal, who is there for us beside the memorial. Janie, Josh Frydenberg says that this has been an attack, a stain on our country, demanding that the Prime Minister act and eradicate this hate.
There, and a lot of applause, a lot of hugs, a lot of people saying that the Prime Minister needs to resign. There was a talk of needing a royal commission. I've got Senator Bridget McKenzie with me. Senator, thank you for joining us. You just were there as part of the press conference, of course, and with Josh Frydenberg. He's getting so much love here and plenty of applause and hugs. It's very, very emotional, but...
It really is, Janie. We've just come back from Rabbi Eli's funeral. Packed shul locally. We know there's going to be funerals rolling throughout this week, which is, the public tragedy of these events. But I think what you heard from the Leader of the Opposition and the Leader of the National Party in the press conference was that we want to see action when we're talking to local Jewish community here or in my home state of Melbourne. They are sick of saying anti-Semitism has no place in Australia without action. We know Julian Siegel's, the government's own envoy appointed, has handed the Prime Minister her report 6 months ago. It's got a suite of recommendations in it, including screening visa holders for anti-Semitism values. The Minister responsible hasn't acted, the Prime Minister hasn't acted, and we've seen Islamic terrorism here on our beautiful Bondi Beach this week as a result.
Josh Frydenberg also spoke about the need for wide-scale reform in terms of educating our children in schools. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. I mean, when the Holocaust occurred, the world came together at the end of World War II, State of Israel for the Jewish people, and made sure it was never to happen again. And yet here we have, in one of the most beautiful liberal democracies in the world, the terror has found its way on shore, and we need to educate our young people about the Holocaust, about anti-Semitism, because too many of our young people, young students, university students, took to the streets and marched across the Sydney Harbour Bridge, marched in anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian marches in Melbourne, week in, week out, thinking they were being compassionate human beings, but they were marching behind terrorist flags, pictures of Ayatollah Khomeini, registered terrorist organisations, and no one was prosecuted. And that is what the Jewish community has been screaming about, and those who've stood with them since October the 8th and the horrific scenes here in front of the Opera House that beamed across the world. So it is not just on governments, it's on all of us as leaders and as parents and community members to don't be silent, don't walk past it, stand up and be counted.
There were a few people, Senator, that came up to us and, of course, they were acknowledging the horrific attack on Sunday, but they were more in favour of Anthony Albanese, and they said, it would have probably happened even if he wasn't the Prime Minister and he was not to blame. What do you say to that?
Well, that sounds like an Anthony Albanese apologist. What we have seen since the October 7, 2023 Hamas attack in Israel is an escalation, an explosion of reported anti-Semitic incidents. We've had Jewish families spat on, kids in kindergarten having to go to school under armed guard, Jewish businesses boycotted, synagogues burned and bombed. That's what's been happening in our suburbs each and every day under Anthony Albanese. So it is not the case. And you've had a Prime Minister and ministers that are silent. Did our Foreign Affairs Minister go to Israel, our ally, stand at Kibbutz Be'eri, stand on the side of the Nova Music Festival where young people were slaughtered in their hundreds? No, we didn't stand. We actually recognised Palestine and couldn't say anti-Semitism without saying Islamophobia in the same sentence. And we equivocated that. So they were tacit and complicit in what happened on Sunday, in my view. Not only were they tacit and complicit, they actually escalated the likelihood of this happening. Under the secrecy of darkness, the ISIS brides return home under Tony Burke. We found that out in the last month. We know that, as I said, 3,500 anti-Semitic incidents, 3,000 people from Gaza here, or coming here on awarded visas without the appropriate checks and balances, and the ignoring of his own anti-Semitic envoy's recommendations, which include the screening of visa holders for anti-Semitic views. And right now you can march with in the streets with a terrorist sign. You're not going to get thrown in jail because no one was prosecuted. The only person spoke to by the police on October the 8th, 2023, out the front of the Opera House was a Jewish man. That tells you everything about why the Jewish community and the broader Australian community is furious. There's a deep fury here because the privilege to lead in this country means you have to stand in and step into the breach when it occurs. And this Prime Minister and his ministers have failed. And what happened on Sunday happened on their watch and because of their lack of action.
And certainly the Jewish community is saying that they haven't been heard, and they have been pushing to, warn the government that something like this is going to happen. Josh Frydenberg also said that we need a royal commission. Do you agree?
Absolutely, we need a royal commission. We need to know what our security services knew when, how they communicated with state police forces, who granted visas on what means. How were they watched? When you're on a watch list, what does that really mean? There's reports that it's over $8 million to watch one person on the watch list for a year, 24/7, with our security agencies. So there's a lot of serious and legitimate questions that need to be asked, but that should not be an excuse for a lack of action. Right now, in the envoy's report, is a recommendation to screen visa holders. Why hasn't that been implemented for 6 months? So there is a right to feel angry, unheard and upset, and if the Prime Minister was any sort of leader, you would stand with the hurting community. You would attend the funerals. Matilda's funeral is tomorrow. You would visit. You would visit victims who are recovering right now in hospitals here in Sydney. You wouldn't just visit the heroes. You'd also visit the victims.
Right.
And I call on the Prime Minister to show up. Being a leader means you have to show up, even if it's tough.
Senator Bridget McKenzie, thank you.